mainly a military-sponsored project or experiment, or did this go higher at some level, meaning that, who are the people that were behind this then?
The organization that was behind the operations was the NSA, or National Security Agency, which was located in Fort Detrick, Maryland. However, at the time in the 1970s and 80s, the government denied that it existed, and in fact, the initials NSA stood for No Such Agency. Yeah, and it was only until the late 1990s that the government admitted they exist.
Really?
Yes, and now they talk about them all the time.
Yeah.
And they're associated very much with Homeland Security Department, which is our version of Gestapo. And
yeah.
Yes, the NSA was involved. They reported to the Illuminati groups in the United States and other countries who were involved in the establishment of this experimentation. And yes, there were military aspects to it, of course, but the military itself was not in charge of it. In fact, they took their orders from the NSA.
NSA, any connection there to NASA or NASA?
Well, NASA is, in my opinion, a front, just like the CIA is really a front. They really don't do very much of anything. It is a cover for the real space program, which goes on behind the scenes that nobody knows about. And that is where Area 51 comes in, and other bases across the United States and other parts of the world. So that the space program, was highly developed as far back as the late 1950s.
Really?
So much so that even by then, the United States and the Soviet Union had transports to Moon and Mars.
Really?
And NASA is just really for public consumption.
This draws me back to an an article that was released recently from, I think it was actually from Pravda, the Russian newspaper online, that actually talked about or theorized, I guess, about the fact that there are alien bases on the moon, and this is actually one reason why NASA haven't been back to the moon. Any ideas about that?
Well, the moon isn't even the moon. It's an artificial object that's been parked in orbit for many hundreds of thousands of years. It was how this planet was colonized. I talk about that in the Blue Blood book. So yes, and if anybody who has a telescope, on a clear night, on a full moon, you can train the telescope to any crater on the moon, and you will see activity now. And you will see buildings, you will see objects moving. There is the remains of what looks like there had been a terrible war at one time. There's crashed vehicles, there are destroyed buildings and bases. And the same thing on Mars. That is why they never show you the real pictures of Mars, and why suddenly, mysteriously, the space probes vanish or the cameras are not operating. It's simply because they don't want you to see what they're transmitting.
So,
yes.
Very interesting. Yeah, exactly. There's so much here I wanna know more about, definitely. But I do want to spend some time. I mean, we're fastly running. This hour is going by so quickly because there's so much to talk about here. But I do want to spend some time, talking about your latest book, 13 Cubed: Case Studies in Mind Control and Programming. Tell us a little bit about the book and what you talk about in the book.
Well, it's interesting that I even came to do this book because, I have spent many years teaching people healing techniques and about the New World Order and color therapy and hyperspace language. This is what I had always been doing and teaching. But over the years, more and more people started to come to me in consultations with issues related to mind control and programming. And so, much to my dismay, I started to become a deprogrammer of people, and it's not something I ever wanted to do. developed over the course of my work. And so I saw many different people with similar issues. I knew about programming from my years at Montauk and subsequent deprogramming, so I knew how it was entered and I knew how it had to come out. And so I decided to make a case study of the various hundreds and hundreds of people that I saw, but I narrowed it down to 13 cases symbolically that were basically the flags of the other programs that people could learn and understand. The reason I gave it this name is because the Nazis discovered a long time ago, and even before that the aliens, that when you fragment a mind, it goes and breaks into pieces that have a construction in the mind of a cube that is 13 by 13 by 13. And that means that the most you can fragment the mind is 2,197 pieces. And each of these compartments or components can be programmed into different alter personalities or sub-personalities. You can create constructs within them, virtual worlds within the mind where these alters can operate from. And so this book describes the various programs, how to deprogram from them, and it's quite a comprehensive work. I have had doctors, the book has only been out for a couple of weeks, but I have had doctors call me and say it is the best psychological book they've ever read.
There we go.
So it's a bit of a compliment for me.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, I also spent a few years as a developmental specialist, where I worked in a mental facility with handicapped individuals who were dually diagnosed, meaning they had a form of mental retardation as well as a form of mental illness. Many of these people were criminally insane and were violent, so we had to learn how to protect ourselves without hurting the patient. And so I observed also various stages of programming and genetic manipulation in those people as well, which became part of the book, 13 Cubed.
All right, and the question, of course, also is, who is under mind control? I mean, there are so many different levels to this. The kind of the consensus is, I guess, that mind control is something that happens when it's something very hands-on with use of, EMF weaponry, psychotronic weapons, to disrupt the brainwaves, drugs, hypnosis, and programming to alter the personality or the function of the brain, or whatever. But I guess that there are even more subtle levels to this, stuff that goes on in everyday life that we might not consciously think about. We have, of course, the television, we have words, we have symbols, colors, and images. Do you think that that is a big factor too in regards to how mind control works?
Well, what you just mentioned are the accoutrements or the tools that we see now on the earth for mind control and programming. But I would have to answer your very first question, and that is 100% of the earth is mind controlled to one degree or another based on the tools that you mentioned, the films that we watch, the TV, radio transmission, cell tower transmission, even satellite transmission, which now completely ring the earth. There is nowhere on the earth that is not touched by satellite transmission. Even the most remote place is covered. And so basically, up until about 10 or 12 years ago, many people had to be physically taken to a location for mind control and programming. But in the last 10 or 12 years, they can do this remotely from satellites and cell tower transmission, so that you could just be going about your daily life and you're being programmed at this moment.
Not good at all. Is this something that we are defenseless against then?
Well, that's why I developed my deprogramming techniques, because I know that it is definitely reversible. Of course, it's not an easy process. They did not develop this programming so it could be easily removed. It's very difficult. Not only that, but it becomes genetically induced so that you can then pass on the programming genetically to your offspring. So that people being born already programmed, and then they just get added to during the course of their life. So it's very pervasive. It's every part of the world. We see evidence of it in almost every news broadcast on a daily basis. And so yes, the techniques that I describe in 13 Cube, I have another book called True Reality of Sexuality, and I have an entire series of DVDs on mind control and deprogramming, where I go into detail on how to remove this from the mind.
Interesting. I want to get into that a little bit on just the fact that what the purpose for this might be. I mean, in the end, as you see it, is this only about controlling the population because of, whatever philosophy or idea that is up there? Is this about some kind of sickness? People are talking about that many of these people that are on the top and are developing these technologies and implementing them, that they are psychopathic in nature. What's your understanding of why the reason is for this?
If you understand about the origin of the people who control this planet, you would know that they have a reptilian mindset. Their ancestry is reptilian. And so they don't think the same way as a human being. In their mind, they're doing the right thing. They feel that human beings are not able to control themselves, and so they need to be controlled. That's on one level. On another level, they consider human beings to be the aliens on this planet because the reptilians were the first ones here, and we are the invaders.
Really?
That's another level.
Okay.
But when you also remember, as I mentioned earlier, if you are just a few compared to the many, and weapons are not enough to control the masses, mind control is the most logical solution to this. And anybody who has watched the old Star Trek movies about the Borg, where there are this race of people who are half robot, half living organism, that is what they want to achieve on the Earth, a race of cyborgs, robotical, organic people who do not question authority, who do the function they're told to do without question, and allow the elite to be in charge of everything. In that way, the society that the elite wish to create will not ever deviate or change, and they will always remain in power.
We are quickly, it seems, approaching that nightmare.
In my opinion, it's there. When I see the people out there, they're totally mindless. They don't question. Whatever the CNN tells them, they believe it. And it's very sad.
It's very sad, definitely. What I think about when you mention the reptilian, this is something that goes back to of course, something that is also in us, in humans. We have the mammalian brain, the R complex, or the reptilian brain.
That's right.
And it seems to me that what they're doing in a way with all of this is that they are speaking and communicating to this part of the brain that is part of our subconscious, meaning that to some extent is this something that is a part of our nature, so to speak, or are we a bit do we have a bit of that mentality in us, do you think?
Yes, and I described this also in the Blue Blood book on how this came to be. And I have to go back to very ancient history, when the reptilians from the Draco star system were the very first colonists on this planet. And it wasn't until many millennia later that humans colonized this planet as well. And of course, reptilians and mammalians are not designed to live in the same location. They have different needs and requirements. And so there was battle. And this is what, in the Bible, the story of Adam and Eve, that's the allegorical story of the battle between reptilian and mammalian. And to make a very long story short, in order to end the battle between them, the decision was made to create a new hybrid